I came across a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old boy hockey player, and he had been working with a psychologist for quite a while, kind of built up a bunch of maladies in his head about inner belief systems, and caused him to chase a rabbit down a hole that he was never going to catch. When in fact, it wasn't that he had belief issues. He just lacked a couple of skills. He just wasn't doing some basics. That was an inciting incident around me wanting to make sure that I never did that to someone else.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jay Scherr, your host of the Business Minds Coffee Chat podcast, where we have deep and meaningful conversations with extraordinary business leaders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and others who are changing the world through the work they do. Our mission is to deliver game-changing insights, inspire and uplift, and provide practical, actionable content to help you unlock your potential and become your best self. I thought a good starting point would be for you to maybe share what your favorite thing is about yourself.
Wow, that's a loaded question. Favorite thing about myself would be, well, my family. Specifically where I come from. And some people are gifted with incredible parents, and I'm one of those people who had a world-class dad and a world-class mom. And one of my favorite things that I get to go out and do is share stories about them with other people, talk a little bit less about who Todd Herman is, and be able to share, my ranching and farming mom and dad with other people, because they're just two world-class humans who kind of, I think, in many ways showed me how to live life the right way.
So I'd love to tug on that a little deeper. So can you share with us, let's maybe start with mom and then we'll go to your father. When you think about your mom and you think about those lessons that you learned that she instilled upon you, maybe it was things that she said, or maybe it was things that she just showed you.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of the most valuable lessons that you've taken away from her that you still think about regularly today?
Easily, it would be generous. My mom is generous with both her opinion, but she's generous with her attention. The joke in my huge farm family of cousins and aunts and uncles is, you'll be the first to hear from my mom when you might be doing something wrong, but you're also going to be the very first person to hear from my mom when you need help. She'll be the first one on your doorstep with a lasagna or food if someone is sick. And she just has an incredible energy for being there for other people, even with her charitable work that she always did. She was talking about recycling in the 1970s, before that was a popular thing. And when you think about the demographics of farm and ranch families, that doesn't kind of fit with most people's ideas of what that person would be concerned about. But easily her generosity of both spirit and time is the greatest thing that I was able to bear witness to growing up, and still to this day.
Beautiful. All right. So same question in regards to your father.
Well, it's integrity. Unfortunately, my dad passed away just a little over a year ago. And, after when he passed, my province where I came from, Alberta, Canada, lowered the flags at government buildings to half staff in his memory. And he wasn't a political official. He wasn't, a celebrity in any sort of a way, but he was a man that carried himself with a lot of weight with his word. And that was massively respected amongst the agricultural community. And so, just his humility that he always had. And again, like my mom, but in a different way, this has even happened before he passed away, but the number of people who I was able to kind of maybe influence in some way because they knew that I was Dennis Herman's son, and the moment I would mention that, they'd be like, oh, okay, like you come from some incredibly good stock, whether I deserved it or not, any sort of respect. So that, and he always had a thing with us when it came to other people and dealing with other people. And he has especially imparted it on me because he knew that I was going to be the one who went out into the world and was going to be traveling around and meeting people with probably, they could be wearing three-piece suits, or they could have some incredible brand wrapped around them. And we were working in the corrals one day, and this is when I was about 16, 17, about getting ready to go off to college. And he said, Todd, you see that piece of cow shit over there? And I said, yeah. He said, you can take a piece of cow shit, wrap it in a red ribbon, but it's still a piece of cow shit. And then he walked away. And I've said that on stages for for 30 years. And it sticks with a lot of people. And I didn't know what the heck he was talking about at the time. I was like, he's just mumbling. Like, what's he saying? But his message to me was, you're going to meet a lot of people that might be just pieces of shit wrapped in a red ribbon. Make sure you look past the red ribbons that are out there. And that was my dad's way.
With that, what a great piece of wisdom right there.
It's gold. It's gold. You can't
gold.
beat that. Yeah.
That is so true. And, as you were telling the story about your dad and the fact that he passed away a year ago, mine passed away 9 months ago in a couple of days. And when I think about him, I think about the human being that he was and the way that he impacted, certainly not only me, but the many people whose lives he touched. And I often think about what I said at his funeral. Did you have an opportunity to say a few words about your dad at his funeral?
I did. Yeah.
Do you remember what you spoke about?
I wrote a poem for my dad
Wow.
at his funeral. I can read it to you.
Would you?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Thank
Give me
you.
1 second while I pull it up here.
Thank you.
So I was in Washington, D.C. With a group of entrepreneurial friends, and I got the news that Dad had passed away. And unfortunately, I couldn't get back to Medicine Hat, Alberta for another 16 hours or something like that. So I was sitting in the Washington, D.C. Reagan Airport for about 10 hours waiting for the flight. And so this is where I wrote it, was actually sitting in some chairs in D.C.'s airport. So it says, in fields of green where sunlight gleams, there walked a farmer with modest dreams. An honorable man, his word held tight, his labor and wife a guiding light. With weathered hands and a steadfast soul, he toiled the land his heart made whole. From dawn till dusk he sowed and reaped a life's harvest where memories seeped. Through seasons of toil he never did wane, his spirit resilient, a weathered grain. His family his compass, his truest pride, with Kathy by his side, love's knot was tied. 4 precious seeds his legacy grew, nurtured with wisdom each one he knew. He taught them the value of sweat for the land, the beauty of simple, the joy of his hand. Around his siblings his laughter would ring, but it's his grandkids that would make his heart sing. He shared his knowledge, a sage in their eyes, passing on lessons as the moon would rise. The land bore witness to his fruitful life. Blessed by his presence, it was free from strife. A farmer, a rancher, a pillar so grand, in nature's embrace he'll forever stand. Now as the sun sets on the golden plains, his memory lives on where gratitude remains. An honorable man, his legacy sealed, in the hearts of loved ones, his spirits revealed.
Oh, Todd, that's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, you wrote that entire poem there as you were at the airport. This wasn't something that you had been planning for or had started or had the seeds of that poem written?
Well, I would say those seeds and those ideas and those thoughts were always there. It's just, when the emotion kind of took me, it, took me about an hour and 40 minutes to write that whole thing. So Yeah. I mean, now again, like even putting those words together, I'm someone who loves and has been accumulating great poems and poetry for a really long time. Most people wouldn't think it, but yeah, I think that's the ultimate mastery of language. It's like today's singer-songwriters and kind of the same thing. It's just in a different form than singing and songwriting. But yeah, no,
Mm.
I've accumulated it. So I think I was standing on the shoulders of many other wiser and better poets than myself when I was writing that.
What a beautiful gift to your father, to his legacy, and to your family. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And as
Yeah,
you're
no.
reading that, of course, it brings the emotions that I feel and felt
Yeah.
at the time that I was standing in front of a group of loving people who were listening to my words. And I will say this to you, that my words, they were certainly meaningful, but I wasn't able to express them as beautifully as you just did. I was
Well, it's
so
just my
full.
way. But
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So, Todd, I have found through my own experience and just through living life that behind every behind every big idea is often a very deeply personal experience that makes the work not just meaningful, but necessary. Would you share with us a memorable or a profound experience from your own life that has informed your work?
Well, there's a lot of them. Um, so I would say, well, the one thing that gave me sharp elbows in my industry, and gave me a lot of the conviction that I have around like some of my philosophy on what it means to be a coach or an advisor or a consultant or someone who serves other people, um, is making sure that you really take responsibility for knowing where your limitations are. And this world of, say, leadership and personal development and self-help or performance or marketing or businesses. There's a lot of people who have very large egos around their ideas and they think it's a cure-all for everything. And that's really irresponsible as a frame to take out into the world, because it causes you to say, yeah, I can help that person, or yeah, I can do that, when you really shouldn't be helping that person. There's other people. You don't have to be grabbing all the money on the table. Like, that's just a phrase that I give to other entrepreneurs and business owners all the time. Because if you try to grab all the money on the table, just from a semantic standpoint, you're going to have a very bloated business, because you're going to be making a lot of promises to people that, yeah, my product can do that, and it can do that, and it can do that. And all of a sudden you have a product that really doesn't do anything. So I say that because when I first started out in 97 doing mental game coaching and training, and again, Jay, you have to remember, coaching wasn't an industry back then. In fact, it didn't really have a moniker. It was kind of still inside of the umbrella of consulting more than anything, and service based. And mental game as a topic was nowhere near, you know, being a market. It was used primarily in swimming and skiing. There was a handful of professional athletes that would use it in their different sports, but very much a new concept for people to be training or getting coached on it. So here I was starting a business that no one wanted. um, but I was working with teenagers, and I was just ignorant enough to keep on going at something that was taking a lot of energy to do. And about a year into me doing this business, getting to the story, sorry, was
All good.
I came across a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old boy hockey player, and he had been working with a psychologist for quite a while, about a year and a half, who was getting him to work on a bunch of kind of inner work that was going to get him nowhere near his ultimate goal of getting drafted into the next league that he wanted to get into. and it got me really kind of like angry because, in sports and in youth sports, there is a natural urgency because there's only so much time you have to devote to your sport before you might miss your opportunity, because it just is what it is. It's the structure of the way that leagues work and age and whatnot. And yeah, kind of built up a bunch of maladies in his head about inner belief systems, and caused him to chase a rabbit that down a hole that he was never going to catch. When in fact, it wasn't that he had belief issues. He just lacked a couple of skills. He just wasn't doing some basics. Point about that was it really did sort of, I'm going to say, ruin the kid's opportunity, but it took a big chunk out of his opportunity. And that was an inciting incident around me wanting to make sure that I never did that to someone else, that I created maladies in their heads with any of the stuff that I would ever come up with to cause them to believe something about themselves that just wouldn't be true. And then also be a real professional at my chosen career and in my business, where I didn't try to solve everyone's problems, but what I did was I built a network around me of other highly qualified, experienced practitioners or products or whoever that I could refer other people to. And I can credit my brother Ryan with this, after we got done playing college football, where, and again, he would get that from mom and dad around just the idea that giving back isn't just only a you thing. There's a way of you giving back where you increase the surface area of the thing that you love and are being able to be a part of. In his context, it was football and sport. Like, an increase in the surface area of it is like, there's ways that you can contribute to a topic or a niche or a market where you might not get immediate benefit from it, but the industry or the market or the niche or the idea or the topic as a whole gets better. So I've always thought about that with coaching. Like, there's a lot of people who want to, through ego, we want to say that we're the best at something. I know I'm world class at what I do, but I don't need to sit around and, wait for a gold medal for someone, because my pursuit is, I would love for someone 25, 30 years from now to say, like, like, Todd Herman made a great impact on coaching. Like, that's someone that I'm, proud to have learned from, or that I watched. And, that's someone who, helped to amplify what coaching can do as a way of helping other people get better.
Well said. So, one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking through this is that I believe it was Seth Godin who may have said this, but we've heard it in different forms, that not everyone is your customer.
Yeah.
Not everyone should be your customer, your client. I know, for instance, in my business, first and foremost, I'm not for everyone. I can't solve everyone's problem, nor can I take on everyone, right? So there are certain types of clients that I'll work with who I believe, number one, that it's a good fit, and number two, that I can actually serve them and help them in the areas that are important to them. So going back to not everyone is your customer or client, if you were to say no to someone who was interested in coaching with you, can you maybe identify for those that are entrepreneurs and business owners the reason why you might say no, or refer them to someone else?
Well, okay. So the way that I view my role in personal coaching and mentoring now is it serves a few different purposes for me. I do have businesses that I'm involved in. One is, I've got upcoach.com, which is a platform that gives coaches a a place where you can deliver coaching to clients, because that's, as someone who's scaled and sold a few different coaching and training companies, the really hard part of this business is actually the delivery side of it. Not as much the marketing side, like everyone would kind of cause you to believe. It's actually the delivery side, because when you are coaching, you're actually very close to transformation. You're as close as you can get to transformation with people. And when people are buying from you, they're really buying transformation, because they've already gone through the cycles of buying a book, taking a course, watching YouTube videos, reading articles, maybe being a part of a mastermind or a group. And so when they eventually get to the point of wanting coaching, really the job that they're hiring for is not more training or learning. It's actually putting ideas into action. So if you're someone who can transform someone and take them on that journey, it creates a flywheel of referability and testimonial and evangelical ambassadors, unlike anything else that you can do, because people just aren't used to getting results with other people. So if you're a coach or you're someone who can actually deliver that, I mean, you just massively stand out. So UpCoach has that sort of purpose for me there. But the reason I want to still work with a handful of private clients is because I want the ideas that come out of the reality of working with a really ambitious, high achieving person that's trying to make something happen. There's a lot of grime and dirt in that. Like, it's just not an easy process of helping someone summit a new mountaintop for themselves. It's not as
on
simple
both
as,
sides, yours and theirs.
um, yeah, it's actually not. I don't find it hard on my side of things, because I'm
Okay.
leveraging now 30 years in a lot of frameworks and processes, and I really understand human behavior well.
Mhm.
And I don't find it hard, because even if I did find like you and I are working together, even if I did find something that isn't quite meshing up or matching up with you, that just triggers my creative side of me. Like, I'll figure it out. So it's not hard for me necessarily. But for them, it can be quite difficult, because you're challenging your own sense of self, or you're challenging your own sense of decision making. Like, hey, I made this decision and it's really not working out. So that can be a real break in their ego. So just to answer the ultimate question that you had, I need to frame it first. I only work with a handful of private clients. And so semantically, I would just say one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to work with me is because you really couldn't afford it anyway. So like and that's not a posturing thing. It's the purpose of me working people privately is so that I can take those things and leverage them into books, training, or group programming, where the people who at a far lower price point could come into, say, group mentoring that I would have, or courses, and really get powerful ideas that resonate deeply, because you feel like they come from a place of practical application, not just some dude who's regurgitating the 4 best-selling books on a topic. That will never be me, because I just have a frame that most of the authors out there are not real practitioners anyway. They haven't been on the field doing, I'm up over 20,000 plus hours of just one-on-one work with some of the most high achieving elite people in different categories on the planet, like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Kobe Bryant, Scott Mahoney in the world of finance and business, and tons of other people. And there's a big difference between what those people are truly doing, and especially from an attitudinal standpoint, than what is being fed inside of the average self-help or personal development book today.
Explain that in a bit more detail, that attitudinal piece.
Okay, so one thing is that, a very popular thing today, because it's going to look great on Instagram, is, ego is the enemy. Okay,
Mm,
and that's not to shit on a book from Ryan Holiday. I mean, he's taking it from Stoics. The problem
sure.
with most of the Stoics out there is they didn't actually practice what they did. I know Stoicism extremely well, and I didn't need Ryan to come along and help me study. I've been studying that stuff for a long time, but um, I am I would say I'm pretty anesthetized to like evangelical type thinking about a concept or an idea. And even the Stoics didn't really practice what they were talking about. They, it was like very popular ideas. We would like to pursue this, but they didn't practically actually do it every single day of their lives. That's not to mean that you can't try to do that. I'm just like, let's not make sure we put people up on pedestals as complete models of perfection that really shouldn't be there. So ego is the enemy. No, it's not. A really, really healthy ego that's born out of a deep connection to what your values and your dispositions are, the way that you're built. That's very powerful. And I would say a good chunk of my highest achieving people were very unapologetic with the way that they were going about it. Like they didn't try to have to sit there and explain to everyone else why it is that they want to go and do what they want to go and do. It's one of the biggest mistakes that people make is answering the question why. It's a fool's errand for most people. You do not need to answer that question to anyone else. You just need to know, is this resonating within you? And if it is, you will never hear me. If you were a client, you would never hear me say, well, why do you want to go do that? It's a very judgmental question.
It is.
And to think about what it demands of you, like to the person who's listening right now, if someone says to you, why do you want to build that business? Or why do you want to serve those people? Or why are you connected to that problem or that issue and you want to go solve that? What it demands of you is that you take this thing, it's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's something that's inside of you that is, it's like you caught a scent of something. Your nose caught a scent and you're just picking up on it. And then I come along and say, why? Why do you want that? Now it demands that you put language to the scent, language to the feeling, language to the resonance. And most people do not have the vocabulary to answer that question.
Right.
So then think about it. Now you do answer it, Jay. You do answer the question of why. And then what happens is, and then what happens is you language it. But the old cochlear function in your inner ear goes off and it's hearing you say the words. And there's this little voice in your head that goes, well, that's not really why. I'm having a hard time. But because you and I are talking, you don't want to give me the impression that you don't have some sort of resonance. You don't have some sort of conviction for it. So you keep powering through. Meanwhile, that little voice in your head is kicking off saying, but that's not why. And then you think that it creates this other malady that, I need to get better at answering the why. And this has been going on for hundreds of years inside the world of philosophy and religiosity and spirituality and, self-help, personal development, and leadership today. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't fucking matter.
So we're not asking the question why. We are focused more on the feeling, the idea itself.
Does it resonate with me?
Burning inside of you.
Yeah. Does it resonate with me? Or am I just bullshitting myself? Am I just saying it because I learned in a branding class that I need to express why? I just like, it's like the topics that I have and that I care about. I don't know. I just have a stamina for it. I don't know if it's because someone laid pixie dust on me at some point in time. I don't pretend to know I know everything that there is to know about the universe and how it functions and how it works, or if we're all planted with a certain, little piece of code in our genetics that says this guy is going to go and do this. I don't know. And I'm not going to fall down that stupid rabbit hole. All I know is I freaking love talking to people about taking things off of their or out of their backpack that's causing them too much weight as they're trying to climb to their next summit. And I'm really, really good at that. Don't know why. It just is what it is.
It is what it is. And you leverage your strengths and you leverage that passion and excitement that you have for it, which I love this piece of the conversation because I think it's an important conversation for those that are watching and listening to hear about, that often we're not able to, nor should we focus our time and attention on being able to articulate that feeling. It is what it is, and use it and use that strength, use that power and that passion and that feeling and that purpose that you have to bring your gifts, your voice, your talents, whatever that happens to be,
Yeah.
to the world. And you said it so well that if we're not doing that and we're questioning everything, we go down that rabbit hole. And that's where we run into the self-doubt, the questioning, all the things that happen between the 6 inches between our ears, right?
Yeah.
And
But even on that note, sorry to interrupt you, like
yeah, no,
even on the
good.
self-doubt side of things, the idea that self-doubt isn't supposed to be there is another terrible weight that we're putting on other people. No, like, I mean, I've got five guys in the NHL playoffs right now. And all five of them were at a special preseason camp back in September, where basically about 27 of the absolute top guys in the league are at. These are 27 of the best hockey players in the world. So, in a discipline or in a category of skill or talent or vocation, they are the best of the absolute best on the planet. At that camp, I did 17 one-on-ones with these 25 people. Now, if someone who's listening is knows hockey, like Connor McDavid is there, Sidney Crosby is at this, Nathan McKinnon is at this camp. If you're a basketball person, this would be like, the Kobe Bryants and the LeBron Jameses and the insert name of the biggest names all in on one spot. Of those 17 people, every single one of them, we talked about doubt, self-doubt, doubt. But they have so anesthetized themselves to the fact that, and some of them great coaching from other people, like that's a normal part of it. That's just the air that you breathe at this level, because you're in such a comparison contrast zone of being around such incredible people that it might cause you to go, geez, can I do that? Like what he just did over there is insane to me. I can't do that. But then my job would be, yeah, and you're not supposed to. Just physiologically, he's built as a human being to skate in that style. You couldn't do that because your hips aren't placed in the same way that person is. So he skates in that style. My job would be to go, yeah, but you do this, and this differently. And he would have a hard time doing that. So I'm there to build trust in your own process. Right. Wow. But the point is like self-doubt exists, and self-doubt's going to exist even that much more as you pursue really, really hard things. But what happens is you develop a different relationship with it because you have this massive long list and resume of constantly facing doubt, beating it, facing doubt, beating it. And when you can rely on rituals and routines in your days, your weeks, and your months, that's one of the best disciplines that you can build, because doubt hates discipline. Doubt hates standing up to the fact that it knows that no matter what, Jay is always going to get 15 minutes of exercise a day. He's just made that commitment to himself back in June of 2004. And I want to make doubt tired. I don't want it to never show up. I just want to make it tired.
Ooh, that is so good. So I'd love it if you would share with our audience what, you've written the definitive book, The Alter Ego Effect. So you've written the definitive book about alter egos, and describe for all of us, including me, what an alter ego is. I think most of us can probably picture or imagine what an alter ego is, but I'd love it from your perspective, what it is and what it's not. Sure. And then maybe if you could give a couple of examples, you've already mentioned some names, but if you could give maybe a couple of examples of notable people that we would know who have created an alter ego, and in what area of life and how has it transformed and impacted that person?
Well, I hope we have 4 hours. There's a big loaded question there. Okay, so first off, what is an alter ego? Well,
Please.
the person who coined the phrase alter ego was Cicero, and he said it back in 44 BC, and he still has, and to this day, I think the best definition of it, which is the other I or trusted friend within. So you and I both know the importance of having great mentors and coaches and friends, and in
Yes.
my case, incredible parents. The value of that, surrounding yourself in an environment of incredible people, is so enriching and fulfilling and valuable to be, because those things shape you, just like any external force helps to shape something. But most people just fail to bring that concept and that idea of mentors and friends between the 6 inches of their ears, because most people kind of live a lonely existence of their own voice up there, or their own concept of how to succeed in life or in business or in relationships and family. And I was always a very creative person and stayed very connected to that creative imagination, which is really the root of the idea of alter egos, because I still to this day think that the great superpower of human beings is our creative imagination, because nothing else on the planet has our creative imagination. And alter egos are just simply a way of harnessing creative imagination. It's bringing the model of something that you might admire or would like the traits or the qualities of into your mind as a picture of what you would like to move towards. Uh, and when you think about it from like a scientific standpoint, because human beings in our brain are teleological, we're goal seeking. A large part of our brain is dedicated to the visual cortex already. And when someone says something to another about like, hey, you got to be your best self, it's a wonderful phrase, and I get the intent that's there, but it's just not practical. It's not really useful. Um, Whereas an alter ego is very useful. It's very practical, because now I can use the image of someone or something else as a frame to help me move my current self towards a new image of what I would like to become. So Cary Grant, the famous Hollywood golden era actor, he had a quote when being interviewed at the end of his career. Someone who's known as being very debonair and charismatic, and um, an incredible like dresser and very distinguished in his presence. He said to the interviewer, when they were asking them about his life growing up in Bristol, England, where he had a mom who was a single mom, and very much grew up on, quote, the other side of the tracks, didn't have very much, in the 1900s and 1910s when he was growing up. And he had this idea of becoming a performer. And his name isn't Cary Grant. That's what we created as a stage name for himself. But he said, I pretended to be somebody I wanted to be until I became that person, or he became me. But at some point we met, like two circles of a Venn diagram. Like, here's where I am today, and here's where I would like to be. And when I think about the person that could more easily attain this thing, oh, I have that idea. His name's Cary Grant, and he's debonair, he's charismatic, he's distinguished. I don't feel like that right now based on where I'm from. But this new model, this new identity, this new name that I've given it can help me become that. And Halsey, the pop singer and actress, she basically had the exact same sentiment. She came from a very troubled background, and she always said Ashley, which is her given name, she could never see Ashley go and do this. But Halsey, she could go and do this. And if you think of the name Halsey, it's just an anagram of changing around the letters in her name. That's all she
Yes,
did.
it is.
So that's kind of the spirit inside of the alter ego idea. And when you said before, what is it not? I'm never going to tell anybody what it's not. It can be whatever you want it to be.
Interesting.
Because it would be me dishonoring the idea that it's really born out of the creative imagination of humankind. And the great thing about the concept is I never get anyone objecting to it. I just don't, because everyone has played with this idea when we were young. right? When we were jumping off of the sofa at the age of 6 and pretending to be Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman or, Iron Man today or Black Panther or whoever. And all that is just a little kid going, well, if I was that, then I'd be able to do this. That's at the root of the idea. If I was that, then I would be able to do this. What's beneath it at a very deep psychological level is I feel like there's a bunch of qualities or traits or things that I've got that need to be snipped. If I wasn't so short, or if I wasn't from this area of town, or if I wasn't from this part of the country, or if I didn't have this intellectual defect or whatever, then I could do that. So me as a curious person, I just came along with that concept and went, if we're already doing it, then why don't I just build a method around this so that people could take this thing and more readily and easily implement it, because it's kind of built into the wiring of how we are structured anyway.
So the process that you have been able to identify and articulate in your book maps to the way our brains work.
It maps to many things. One, it maps to the way that we build an identity, period. Like we all have we have not just one identity, we have many identities. And that's kind of one of the things that I throw punches at all the time as a bad idea, is that there's one self. There's no one self. Well, we can't look under a microscope and find one self that's within us. And secondly, it maps to the fact that human beings, we act in contexts. We act in roles in our lives.
Like me as a father, me as a business coach,
when you
me
go on
as
stage,
a musician, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then what happens is we actually amplify performance in that role when we do what? We're very intentional about how we want to show up. So I just walk through that process in the book. So like if someone is judging themselves right now in their performance as an entrepreneur, all I ask people is, well, if you think about it, have you been really intentional at building the identity of the her or the him that's showing up in that business that's going to allow you to win in that field? Because most of you are just taking for granted. I'm just going to go and do this. And I'm like, great, wonderful. But would you like to do it in a more effective and efficient manner? So let's just sit back for a second and say, when you think about you as an entrepreneur, or you as a coach, or you as a CEO, and you think about how you would most really want to show up in that space, like what are those traits, qualities, or attributes that you'd really like to bring to that, just in your way, not because you're hearing it from, the 17 different best practice blogs that you just read about on how to know what's your way that you want to go and do it. Now, some people can just take that idea and go and they're like, I never thought of it that way. Wonderful. But if you do have a difficult time implementing it, then that's where I would place the alter ego. And I would say, okay, now let's use the model of someone and something else to help pull those qualities out of you more easily. Let's keep Todd on the sidelines over here, this idea, this whole self that you have, and let's put this guy in place. And so that's actually that's the origin story for Super Richard, which was my alter ego that I used when I started my business, because I was insecure, indecisive, and inarticulate. I was not doing the things that I was making myself promise I would do the very next day when I woke up. I was not making the phone calls so I could get speeches in front of small soccer and hockey and swimming and volleyball and football and associations. I just wasn't making the calls. I was so caught up in, rejection and all that. And so I needed someone who was decisive, and I needed someone who was confident, and I needed someone who was articulate. And I had already used the alter ego when I played football, and I got a college football scholarship and whatnot. But that alter ego, which was Geronimo, he was not built for this new role that I had.
Okay.
But Super Richard was, and he was a composite of Benjamin Franklin, one of my heroes at the time, and Superman, like 1970s version of Superman, and Joseph Campbell. who wrote, The Hero's Journey, The Power of Myth. And I saw him when I was 11 years old on a PBS special with Bill Moyers, and I was just enamored with his ability to articulate such big concepts of mythology. And I understood it. And I was like, that's such a superpower. And so those are my 3 forms that took place to build Super Richard. And
So Super Richard then it's an amalgam of those 3, but you took,
specific
if I'm
traits.
hearing you correctly, you took specific traits that you wanted
Yeah.
to be able to show up the way that you wanted to in that one particular area. That's where you mentioned context being so important. So you identified the characteristics,
Yeah.
then tied them to the heroes, if you will, or those who you felt had those attributes and those characteristics
that
that
I
were
already had an
meaningful to you.
affinity with, that I already had
Got
an
it.
affection
Okay.
with, because this is the whole emotional part of the human experience. Is I can't sell alter egos off of a shelf. Trust me, I would love to, and I would have a retail shop in every single city around the world selling alter egos off the shelf, because I just know the
Sure.
transformative power of playing with this. But I can't, like, because I could never predict where some people's source code, that's what I call it, of inspiration would come from when it came to their choice of alter ego. Like, it's such a creative, fun process. And no one would be able to put those 3 things together: Joseph Campbell, Benjamin Franklin, and Superman. It can make sense to people now. But I wanted Superman's decisiveness, goes into the phone booth, leaves, and gets the job done. I wasn't getting the job done. And I had such an affinity towards the Superman concept. And Joseph Campbell, taking these really big ideas and being able to articulate it and have it resonate with people with beautiful storytelling, and where you go, man, I want to read more mythological legend books from Norse or from China or Japan or wherever. And then Benjamin Franklin. I mean, I just feel like there's probably very few people in the history of humanity who had more confidence than Benjamin Franklin, because he had 7 incredible careers in a lifetime. And
Incredible.
he had one of the first documented alter egos, Charles Dugood. Where was Charles Dugood born out of?
Yeah.
Charles Dugood, his older brother, had a newspaper in Boston, in the New England area. And Benjamin asked if he could write for it, and his brother said no. So he created a pen name, Charles Dugood, and he submitted letters to the editor, and his brother started distributing them. And Charles Dugood became the most widely circulated writer in America in newspapers all around. This was at the age of 13, 14, 15. And, then of course, an amazing statesman and inventor and, business person and all this. So I read and reread his autobiography so many times, and I wanted that confidence. I just didn't have it at the time. And then I did my next step, which I talk about in the book, is the importance of having a totem, an artifact, or a uniform, something that you wear, something that you put on, so you can build a ritual around it. And I went out and bought a pair of non-prescription glasses. I didn't need glasses. I had 20/15 vision, and even the optometrist was telling me that I didn't need glasses, and no one's buying glasses. Everyone's getting LASIK eye surgery, but I was putting on my cape. I was putting on a protective measure for this, insecure self that was there, Todd. And I was hiring Super Richard to make phone calls. That's really why. It was for sales, and it was for promotion. It was for marketing. And because I was a good coach, but I was not doing other young people a service by keeping myself hidden and not getting out there and communicating my ideas with others.
This is so good and so powerful. And I'll just share with everyone right now, because I really have not spoken about this in particular. I won't go into details, but there was a time when, and this I have talked about on the podcast, but there was a time years ago where I made myself as small as possible. I couldn't use my voice. I was certainly the last person to raise my hand. You would never find me on a stage. You would certainly never find me behind a microphone or leading coaching sessions, etc.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of shame around that. There was a lot of self-doubt, many of the things that you just talked about, right? And I figured out, I didn't name it. I didn't have a name for it, but I figured out that visually there was a way I wanted to be a certain type of person in that instance. It was in me already. I wasn't
That's right.
trying to become something that I wasn't. I was trying to pull out a piece of me that I knew I needed to be able to accomplish the things that I wanted to in that area.
Yeah.
And mapped it out. I wrote it down. There were certain things that I would put on as an example, like this bracelet. It does something for me in the moment, and I don't wear it all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
wear it in a particular instance when I really want to show up in a very calm, smooth type
Yeah.
uh, atmosphere. So it's interesting that you bring this up. For all of you, we're certainly going to put this in the show notes, but I would highly encourage you to make sure you pick up a copy of The Alter Ego Effect, because clearly we just touched on a few things here today, but some very, very powerful transformative tools. And as Todd mentioned, he goes into very specific details on the process of creating the alter ego, the totems, all the specifics involved, the science behind it. So please do yourself a favor
Mm-hmm.
and read up on that. I think it will be a game changer for you. So, Todd, as we are wrapping up our conversation, and I've got to tell you, I've loved this conversation, and I could sit down with you for hours because there's so much more to you and to your story that I'd love to explore. That will be for another time. But I would love it if you would share maybe one or two bigger questions that you're asking yourself today. The big, deep questions, whether it's personally or professionally, just one or two.
Great question. The one that I'm most uh, sort of not interested in, but the one that I'm following more for this year is how can I build more leverage? I'm constantly asking myself, how can I build more leverage? How can I build more leverage with my time? How can I build more leverage with my communication? How can I build more leverage with my team? How can I build more leverage with my family? And because I would say that that was always sometimes a bit of a deficit. Um, I didn't build as much leverage as I could have in some ways. Like a book is a good example. A book is a great piece of leverage because it's such a powerful forcing function on your ideas and getting them down and formulating them and you wrestling with them, especially for me, because I'd been living with the concept for such a long time and people had been encouraging me for well over a decade to write the book, write the book, write the book. And I'm like, no, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Like I still feel like there's a lot more meat on the bone that I got to go and digest before I can really honor this idea that's there. So I'm always asking myself about leverage. How can I do that better? And then what that's getting to is sometimes diagnosing, you know, what's the question that's really interesting to me is what's the part of my personal philosophy that I don't even know is there that I'm swimming in, right? It's the idea of the concept of, the two little fish are swimming along in the ocean and they pass by the bigger fish and the big fish goes, how's the water today? And they're both looking at each other and they're
It's
like,
water.
water? What's water? And I don't even know who shared that. And I'd like to honor them with whoever came up with that metaphor. But I'm thinking about that as well a lot about like what's a part of my own philosophy that I'm living inside of, and it doesn't have to be bad either. That's really good and very helpful for me.
So, without taking too much time, what are you doing? So, what steps are you taking today to help you discover that? What are
Asking
you
my,
doing to know yourself better?
it's a part of my daily writing routine is
It
asking. So
is. Okay.
those two questions are a part of the prompting that's there, and I don't
Excellent.
demand that I have to come up with an answer today, like because the one thing that I've learned, especially in the type of work that I do, is my conscious brain. I want to make sure I feed it the right ideas, but I'm no competition to this unconscious part of me that I don't even necessarily take credit for, because it just soaks up so much stuff. So I would say I'm very well trained at trusting that my unconscious will come up with ideas for me, and then my responsibility then is to, when it comes to now my conscious awareness, capturing it and putting it down. So
Absolutely.
my job is to just come up with better questions so that my brain can marinate on better ideas and better questions. But I write that out every day. And like one of the things that came up and you had asked me the question, it's just so funny that you asked me the question about what do I like about myself? And what I like about
Hmm.
myself is where I come from. Like I like my last name because I have a very positive association with the name Herman, and my mom's maiden name Wyatt. Like just there's a lot of really great people that I've been able to be shaped by, and that's even me. Like I mean, it can make me emotional. Like I mean, I'm just how lucky am I? And then I take on the next action, which is there's a responsibility in that then that I want to take out to the world, that I want to have other people have a good experience of the Herman last name, not Todd, even just the Herman last name, because that's what my parents did.
That is just absolutely beautiful. And I cannot wait for our next conversation. I can't wait for the next book, the work that you continue to put out. I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. What a remarkable conversation. I asked you at the beginning before we started recording what would make this an extraordinary experience for you. And I hope that it was. I want you to know how grateful I am for you. Thank you so very much, Todd.
Well, looking forward to have a coffee in real life then.
Likewise, so am I. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and for listening. I do have a super quick favor. Would you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? Let us know what you thought about this particular episode. That helps us expand our reach and attract incredible guests just like Todd. And to listen to more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button. And my friends, until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Make sure you run out and pick up a copy of The Alter Ego Effect, and please apply the lessons that you learn from that book. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.